Hello. Welcome to
Spooky Season
and Historia, the podcast.
Yay!
Woohoo! We're still sick because it's the same day as last week, so I feel like our voices are warmed up now, though. We're ready.
A little bit of coffee that we shouldn't be drinking.
I know, right?
We're sick, but that's okay.
Last night when you texted me, I was like, maybe I should get tea. And then I was like, nope, I need iced coffee. Gotta have my iced coffee.
Oh, yeah. I'm Jamie.
I'm Kylie. Welcome. We are diving back into spooky season. We have 2 more spooky episodes to finish up October.
Love it. I'm here for it. I love Halloween and like decorating and stuff, but like I'm already into Christmas.
No, get out of here. Get out. I'm actually really sad because October is almost over.
Yeah, it's been going by so fast.
It's like halfway through, but to me, it's like sad. Like, I'm like, I don't want this month to end. I'm like so much happier in this month.
Well, it's definitely cooling down. It's like 53 for the high today, which has been very rare. It's been like in the mid 60s, 70s. My wedding was perfect.
Oh yeah,
weather.
It was gorgeous.
It was like spot on. It was like high 60s, clear weather. Because literally the day before my wedding, when we like where we live was foggy AF. Mm-hmm. Like you could not see the light that was like 50 feet in front of you.
It was bad. Yeah,
it was really. But when we went up to like the rehearsal, clear. It was nice. It was as soon as you hit Black Forest area that it got really bad.
Really? That's crazy. Yeah, that place was really pretty though.
Oh yeah, it's gorgeous. I want to go hiking a little bit further into it because they do have some really like pretty areas. Mm-hmm. But the greatest thing about my wedding, it was a full moon.
I know.
In October.
Those pictures look so cool.
I had no idea.
Full moon.
Yeah, like the picture that your sister, like the pictures your sister posted, I was just like, I cannot wait to get all of these.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so here we are back to spooky month. Another spooky episode. Let's get started.
Oh, no.
We're talking about a place today.
Oh, we're not doing no skin crawling?
Skin crawling?
Skin walking.
Oh, God, no. That was a good one last year.
I know. It was spooky.
I like that one. I loved researching that one. Mm-hmm. They still...
Oh, yeah.
Nope. So I decided this week to move away from the U.S. and cross over the pond into Europe.
Oh.
Because Europe is old as shit.
Oh, hell yeah.
And a lot of terrible things have happened. Now, I wanted this week to be more of a place and a person with a tortured past. Because we always talk about, like, people who are, like, fucked up, have had issues and tortured stuff. But, like, places have just as much torture, trauma, whatever, just as much as a person. So this week, I wanted to cover a generation of torture, sickness, abandonment, and hauntedness.
Oh.
Yes. So this week, the place I will be discussing is none other than Poveglia Island.
Never heard of it.
Really?
Never.
I can't help it because it's October. Ghost Adventures actually did an episode here. It was like season 3 or season 4. So like long time ago when they were actually happy, kind of. But like, because I wanted to watch the episode just to see like what the actual place looked like, because you can't really go here. This place is not open to the public.
Okay.
It's like you have to get special permission from the Italian government to go to this place.
Shit.
People still are going to go there. That's anyway.
Fancy.
Because if you know, like, I'll get into this place of like how it's located and stuff. But yeah, Poveglia Island is batshit crazy. There is a lot of death that has happened on this place. If you are not familiar with this place,
like me,
like you, I'm not surprised. I have briefly learned about this island just because of like some history classes, but it was not a huge part when I learned about the plague.
Oh.
Yeah, this is a plague island.
Oh my God.
Yes. So this island is located in Venice, and it has impacted Venice to a whole new level. And it has so much history, even before the plague. It has history, which I will be discussing, but there is a lot of speculation of how old this place is, though. Mm-hmm. So if you think about, like, I'll get into the plague and stuff, that was around like 1300s that we really saw it kind of develop. Mm-hmm. But Poveglia Island is older than that.
Oh, okay.
So Poveglia Island is a lagoon in Venice that is off the northern coast of Italy. So if you don't know what Venice is, it's a place.
The best place in Italy. Love it.
It's kind of dirty.
It's underwater.
Pretty much, yes. It is slowly sinking into the ground.
It may not be here in about 15 years.
Exactly. But offshore of the main like hub of Venice, there's like a bunch of different lagoons around it. And Poveglia Island is one of them. It may be a small island, but all that has been packed in it historically might as well make it just massive. Because there's a lot of shit that has made it has happened. Where all the real drama starts taking place is around 421 AD. So this is a long time ago.
We're throwing it way back.
Yes, way, way back. But it is said that the island started to be inhabited about 2000 BC.
Okay.
Yeah. So by the Proto-Italians called the Eugeni. I couldn't really find anything like too definitive about this. Like I didn't really find too much of like the legitimacy of this. It's kind of just speculation of like there were people here, perhaps.
Okay.
Because like if you think of it, Venice and Italy and the Romans and stuff, it's just like the history of the Romans is just all over the place. But so Venice started to become inhabited by immigrants from the surrounding area that needed to escape from people such as the Alaric, the Goth, and Attila the Hun. So there's just a bunch of immigrants that were like in the surrounding states in Italy. And of course you had like Attila and a lot of other higher ups that were just like pretty much like killing people and relocating them. And like these immigrants were like, well, we have to move somewhere.
Yeah.
So they decided to move to Venice. Now, due to the lagoons spread out around Venice, they had better luck in protecting their island, and it kept the peace for many generations. So pretty much like the immigrants started to kind of go to Poveglia, establish it, but like these islands were held for a long time of like, if anybody were going to come in through like the Navy and stuff, it was a great defense area because they could protect Venice from being on these smaller islands.
Okay.
Now, it was up until the Chioggia War with Genoa that the people on the island were forced to leave. So the war would go from 1378 to 1381, and the fight was to protect and fight the rival Italian states. So there was a lot of like it was like a civil war almost in a sense of just like a bunch of just Italian states like wanting power over one another. And so in this case, there was a lot of war, a lot of battle that started to go on in Poveglia Island and the neighboring lagoons. And there was no solid victory, but it did end up taking many lives onto Poveglia and pushing out the people who lived there. So the ones who lived there peacefully from like 421 and so on, they pretty much were forced out because they're like, you need to leave. We are making this a war outpost. So all the people that were living were now forced to go live in like Venice. And the military started to like establish like, they built like a whole, they would build an octagonal for which included naval artillery, which would help protect Venice from those who tried to come ashore. And those who did come ashore, there would be a lot of battles going on, a lot of fighting, so a lot of death. Mm-hmm. So this is only the beginning. Was a big war around Venice. a lot of people died.
Okay.
So, yeah, not fun. So by the end of the war, there was now no use for the island and for the military to be there anymore. So this building that they had for it would become abandoned. They'd be like, see ya, we are going to go somewhere else to go fight. We don't need this island anymore. And no one really, like the people who were kicked out didn't really go back. It was just abandoned.
Oh,
then.
wow.
Yeah, for the next like few years or so, they're just like, yeah, we're just gonna leave.
We're gonna go.
Yeah, and everybody was just like, yeah, there was a lot of shit that happened there. I don't really want to go
It's
back.
like the meme. I'm a head out.
Pretty much. It would be left abandoned without a soul for about 200 years.
Oh,
So
shit.
yeah, you would just see this big like fort just off the shore, because you can see this place from Venice.
Damn.
From like the main, and it just was left. Like people kind of just saw it and was like, okay,
Let's just ignore it.
cool story, bro. So now we're about to get into the crazy shit that gives this place its name, Plague Island.
Ooh, spooky spook.
Mm-hmm. If you know about plagues, they're not good.
They're
No.
not.
Now, here is an important side note that will shape the next phase of its history, and that is the Bubonic Plague.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember learning this?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. If you do not know what the plague is, then your history teachers have taught you nothing.
Right. You gotta know about the plague. Come on.
Yes, it is one of the most iconic parts of history.
Iconic.
It is, because there's so much shit behind it, and you're just like, oh my gosh. This plague was so nasty. It decimated half of the world's population, probably more than that. I would like to cover this, but oh my God, it would be like a whole freaking like 2 months or like a month
Yeah.
of just doing it.
Four-parter.
Oh yeah, there's so much to it, because it's not just in Europe. When you think of the plague, you probably think of like London or Paris and stuff.
Yeah, Europe probably in general.
Yeah. It literally hit everywhere except the Americas for a bit until, Spain.
Yeah.
But
Classic Spain.
now, it still is rare occurrences into today. Like, some people still get the plague. It's very, very rare, but it still happens. It's so weird, because I think I saw a news article that was like a year or two ago, and it was like, person comes down with plague, and I'm like, what the fuck do you mean?
I saw someone on TikTok the other day that has scarlet fever, and I was like, I forget that still exists too.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's like, yeah, now we have like better technology on how to actually have people survive this, but yeah, there was no shot.
Nah, you die.
No shot. No, you would think, oh, this is like kind of like COVID, like, no, it's worse. I'm telling you, it is worse. You can fight me on that, but I'm telling you,
it took out
worse.
half the world, so yeah, I'd say it's worse.
And they had no medical practices to like help them. They were like, oh, you're sick, let's cut off your limb, that will make it better.
Well, and the difference between that and COVID is that like COVID, everyone experienced different symptoms.
Yeah.
So some people were barely sick. So like, yeah, I don't think you can compare those two, because the plague was obviously like, it's going to hit everyone the same.
Exactly.
It's going to suck.
It was awful. It was 10 times worse. If you want to fight me on that,
Then fight. Square up.
I will fight you. I'm about 6 foot, so
Yeah, don't mess with her.
no. So you have to think, during this time, the cure was either praying or obscene medical procedures that have been proven useless today.
Oh,
So,
geez.
yes, they would freaking pray like crazy, or they would just be like, okay, here are some natural herbs.
Yeah.
Does this do it? No, I'm still dying. Oh,
It's like, what else were they supposed to do back then?
God wants to take you, I guess.
I guess I'll pray for you. I don't know.
Now, the plague would travel along the Silk Road. So, like, the creation, or I guess, like, how the plague started, I think, like, there's speculations from everybody, but it's been kind of, like, agreed that the plague would travel through the Silk Road. And it would go through Europe and Asia, pretty much throughout the whole world. If you don't know what the Silk Road is, it was a huge, pretty much like trading system that would go throughout, that everybody would kind of find a way to like trade with one another. And they called it the Silk Road. So it would actually go, because the plague even happened in Egypt, in all of those places. Yeah. And so it pretty much, like, if you look at like a map, it like travels around, like along the road of like how it's hitting these people and whatnot. And that's how it spreads, was that people were literally going along this road. And there's like many different reasons of like how it carried and stuff, which I'll kind of discuss. But this plague would reign for hundreds of years. And it would take millions. Like, it would just keep taking the population with it.
Dang.
It was nasty. Now, the direct cause and spread of the plague can be many reasons, but one that is, like, pretty consistent that we have found to be, like, a cause was a virus of some sort. It was a traveling airborne virus, and it would be carried in fleas, rats, and they would pretty much like carry them on ships, carts, wherever they could get them nasty selves into.
Ew.
Yeah, they would carry it, and pretty much like, because it was like a technically like an airborne or whatever type of virus, it would be easily transferred to the human, and it got nasty. But like,
Oh God. Rats.
yeah, and what didn't help were how disgusting people were during this time. There was that people would bathe and shit in their drinking water, so that didn't help. Especially if you were getting symptoms, getting sick. You were drinking the water that you were bathing in, that other people, because a lot of villages, they have their one single like drinking area and like bathing area, and like wherever water is. Yeah.
Cute.
So that did not help.
Oh God, I can't even think of that.
It's nasty. Yeah, because they didn't have good irrigation systems during this time. It was really bad.
Bro.
Dude, London was one of the worst.
Be thankful for your bathroom friends.
Exactly. Be very thankful, because they didn't have one. Or a good one anyway.
Yeah.
So there was also the occasional wars and fights countries had between each other that included flinging dead bodies over walls into the non-infected to get them infected, because it was, I'm pretty positive that they also discovered that like the body was still infected, or like the disease could still be transferred even when the person is dead.
Oh.
Which makes it worse. So it's like, you were fucked no matter what.
Pretty much.
So now let's also not forget the first time. So this also kind of carries into the island now. But the first try kind of to contain the spread was locking all families indoors, waiting for the infected to die out. But the problem is that if there was a family who had someone who was infected, and they would literally board up your house, like completely, have like a priest come by, say like a prayer or whatever, but whoever like was infected in that family would 100% infect the rest of the family, and they would all die.
Oh my God.
It was 100%, and that was what they thought would contain it. But then you would have to, the rats and fleas and that gross water was still everywhere, and they would literally put the bodies in the middle of the street to be carried away.
Jesus.
Yeah, it's terrible. Wow. They did not have a good system. Like, nowhere had like a proper system for a long time of like how to discard like all of the bodies and stuff. Like a lot of them would just have like this giant field and just put all the bodies in like a pit and would just be like, okay. But that didn't help, because then you would have kids that stumble to the field with all these dead bodies that are still carrying the disease, and so they would carry it back home, get infected, get the rest of the town infected. Like, it was a whole process.
Oh my God.
It was awful. Now, the cure, you must be guessing,
Yes.
is that at this time there really wasn't any.
Oh, okay. Fun.
No definitive one of just like, oh, here, take some ibuprofen or take some like Tylenol, like it will make you feel better. Like, no, they didn't have that. They literally had herbs that didn't really do anything except like, I guess, make your breath smell good. But if you survived, I believe there was like a very, very small percentage of like survival rate, like less than 5%. But, and if you did survive, you just were never the same, because when the plague is disgusting. So you would get like pretty much like a bunch of like sores and everything around your mouth. You get them like on your face. Like it was kind of like a extreme version of chicken pox almost, in a sense, that your body was just absolutely just mutilated by this disease. And if you survived, like your immune system was never the same. Your body was just never this. I would have just rather died than survived through it, because it was bad.
Dang.
Because they didn't have like the proper care to like make sure like don't pick at the scabs, don't pick at this. Like,
Yeah.
it gets really nasty. But just like how you are mentally, physically, just you are not the same if you survived. It was bad.
Oh, that's terrible.
This may seem like a scary story to tell at slumber parties, but unfortunately it is true. Like this, if you read books, watch movies, watch documentaries, like there's so much crazy shit that happened during the plague years. And it was constant. Like it was not, for a while, it was just something that it was just a part of your life. Like you tried to be better and tried not to get sick, but it just became like an everyday life thing. But at one point where like it gets like out of control, kind of like how the flu comes around like fall and stuff. That's when it gets like the worst.
Oh, wow.
And that's when you would see like a huge body count start to drop, and people are like, we need to figure out how we can pretty much keep the infected away so they don't get the people who are okay. Like we need to figure out how we can prevent this plague from like pretty much taking over and killing us all. They had to, especially Italy, the Italian government, or however they were set up in city states and stuff, had to figure out how they were going to contain the problem of the plague. In Venice, they decided that there needed to be a solution into curbing the disease from the rest of Venice. And what they came up with was quarantine islands. And when they were thinking of like, okay, what quarantine island or what islands can we use to quarantine? And they're like, well, there's Poveglia. That one's been abandoned for like 200 years. And there's like a perfectly good building standing there that we can push them into. And so the Venice government was just like, let's do that. There was also another island that you could actually go to today and kind of tour and like learn the history of it. It's not a plague island like Poveglia is, but it was a quarantine island for a time, and that was Lazaretto Vecchio. Lazaretto was also used for military use and to contain plague victims, but the this loss of the people was only like a couple thousand people, I think, not nearly as much as Poveglia's. It was decided in 1576 that those in the in Venice, in the surrounding states, would that they would send any like infected person to be sent to Poveglia if they were to come down with the plague. So if you started to have like really red eyes, the rashes, coughing, pretty much all symptoms of like the plague, like if you were starting to have like plague symptoms at this point, like you were almost on your deathbed, you would be sent to Poveglia. Now, Venice believed in this island that it would be the right idea in preventing the disease, and not entirely knowing that what was the real reason of causing the plague, or pretty much just like they thought, oh, if we get rid of the person, the plague's not going to be a problem anymore. And it's like, not necessarily. It's like you're still drinking dirty water that you bathe in. Like,
yeah, still nasty.
Yeah, it's still nasty. It's like once you get that great irrigation system and stop like eating food that rats have been on, then you're pretty good.
That'll help.
Yes. But they didn't like, they knew like a sense of like what was causing it, but they didn't have like a direct idea, and they had no cure. Like there was no cure. So they're like, okay, we just got to send them to an island just to get away from the healthy people or the somewhat healthy people. So the plague in Venice arrived around 1348, but by 1576, they decided that they had to do something because half the population now was gone in Venice. So they were just like, I don't know what the population was then, but they had a lot of people. And then when the plague hit, in those like 200 years, it was just gone.
Oh, that's so sad.
Yeah. And so they're like, we have to do something because I don't know how we can protect ourselves from anybody. I don't know how we can keep this going, how we can keep our country, our city going if this plague keeps killing off all our people.
Yeah.
So Venice at first, before they started sending people to Poveglia, thought burying the bodies in pits outside of the city would do the job in ending the plague. But of course, when the room started to run out, this was then instructed for the bodies of the dead to be sent to Poveglia. So it started at first, before it was like a quarantine, they would just send dead bodies there and kind of just throw them.
Oh my God.
On shore, in pits, and they're just like, okay, this is cool. But as the plague started to spread more in the population was not growing; it was just decreasing at this point. That is when the Venice government was just like, okay, we actually have to do something about the people who are still living that are sick. So anybody who would have a symptom like a cough or spots would be booked a ship right to the island. So they're like, you look sick. And they're like, no, I'm fine. It's like, no, you look plaguish. And so they would just be like, you're going to Poveglia. Yeah, that's pretty much what it is. So they would pretty much just throw them on a ship and be like, bye. And once you see that family member leave on that ship, you're never seeing them again.
Oh, that's so sad.
Yeah. What once was a place for the dead plague victims to be buried then became a waiting room for death. At this point, it was rare for anyone to come out of the island and recover. Maybe every now and then. I did not get a definitive answer in my research, but most people knew that if you went to the island, you were not coming back. And this terrified people.
Oh, yeah.
It was coming to the point to where they started to have symptoms, and they're like trying to figure out a way that they could get around it. And because you don't want to die alone.
Right.
Especially on an island of like other sick people. And there was some times where it's like, maybe it wasn't even like, it was just like a common cold that you got or something. And they're like, plague. So you would be sent there and then you would catch the plague and die. Yeah. So, like, pretty much just being on that island was just dangerous in itself because people, you knew that you were not going to survive, which is devastating because you knew as soon as you board that ship, you're done.
Oh, man. That's rough.
Yeah.
It's plaguish.
It's plaguish.
Word of the day.
Word of the Now, bodies started to be burned. Even some that were still alive on their deathbed.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so they'd be like kind of dead, and they'd be like, bruh, you're going to die. Let's just put you in the pile. So they would just have bodies of just death, of just dead people, and they would just burn them. And so you knew, probably if you were living on Venice, if you saw that smoke rising from
another
from
one.
the island, yep, another group has been gone.
Yikes.
And they probably do this like every day because...
Oh, yeah, with how many people that are...
Yeah, so many people. Now, the population of the death would continue to grow into another surge of the plague in the 1630s, and then we saw another surge in 1777. it was getting pretty intense. Like there was just so many people being brought to the island, being quarantined, and then dying because they were being surrounded by other plague victims that were probably made them worse. And so they would just keep burning them. And then there would be like, of course, like a lower end of just like, oh, it's doing like there's not as many. We're seeing improvement. And then like around 1630s, you saw like another surge and you're like, oh shit. And then around 1777, there was another surge. It also came to the point where ships were beginning to be inspected to trace for plague victims. So if people were trying to leave that had symptoms, they would be like, no, you're coming back with us. You're going to the island because you were sick. And then they're also trying to see if they were like coming to Venice, like, hey, are you sick? And they're like, no way. And then you see the spots and they're like, yes, you are.
Are you sick? I said.
Yeah, like there was a whole ass ship that they saw at one point that was just a bunch of people just with plague. And they're like, you're going to Poveglia. And they're like, oh, shit.
Damn, that's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Eventually, the plague would be somewhat controlled and the island was no longer useful. So after so many years, they finally were just like, okay, the plague is somewhat controlled. We can finally leave. But I have to know, like, the scariest thing is a doctor's mask during the plague years.
Oh.
I don't know if you've ever seen one.
Maybe.
Look it up. But pretty much what it is that it is a mask that covers their face and nose, and it looks like a bird beak.
Oh, yeah, that one, yeah.
It looks like a bird beak, and it's huge and curved. It looks absolutely terrifying.
Oh, yeah. God, I hate birds, too.
Yeah, like, it's a big, long beak that they would use, and they would stuff, like, herbs and stuff in it to, like, help, like, get the smell of, like, dead bodies and flesh and stuff. And it was, like, supposedly to, like, keep them healthy and stuff, but, like, doctors still got plague. Still got the plague. It was easily transferable. Like, it was still bad. But, like, imagine seeing that on your deathbed.
Hell no.
It looks like death.
Ugh.
Like, in some instances, they thought it was death coming for them.
Jesus.
Was a doctor's mask. Yeah. It's terrifying. I would hate to live during the prime of plague years, because if I saw that doctor, I'd be like, just murder me.
Yeah, just kill me now, please.
Yeah. So after it was no longer useful, it was pretty much abandoned then for like another, I don't know, like 100 years or so. So it would become useful though when our bud Nappy Boy, Napoleon Bonaparte, swooped in during his time in Italy.
Nappy Boy is back.
I know.
Oh, we missed him so much.
And he would use the island, actually, Poveglia, as storage for his weapons.
Of course he would.
Freaking dappy.
We're not surprised by that. Go listen to our 4-part?
3-part.
3-part? 4-part or 3-part series on Nappy Boy, Napoleon Bonaparte.
Dude's freaking wild.
Yeah.
But so he would hold his weapons here, but there would also be like battles that he would participate, like him. I think it was like parts of Italy or Austria and stuff. They would just fight on this island, and a lot more lives would also be lost during this. Now another couple 100 years would pass until the island once again would be used. So after Napoleon Bonaparte, it was kind of just left until the 20th century, so the 1900s. Now you think this time around they would use this island for something better, something lighthearted, but again did not turn out that way. Instead, they used the island as an insane asylum.
Oh, of course.
Of course. If we know anything about mental institutions during the early to mid 20th century, is that they were all terrible. None of them were great. Because they didn't, like, for one, they didn't really know better, but for two, they just did whatever the fuck they wanted because they didn't care. And they're like, these people aren't normal, so we're not going to treat them normally.
Yeah, mental health was not the same as it was now.
Yeah. So Unsafe practices were always going on, and the mistreatment of patients were continuously, like, it was bad. It was really, really bad.
Dang.
We know that this area had become an insane asylum due to a sign on one of the buildings that says as such. It was opened in 1922, so it was peak mistreatment time. So from like the 20s to like the 70s, that's like the worst. So along with the existence of this asylum are the myths that could well be truths. Like it's not definitive because there is no like written proof, but there have been eyewitnesses of like what has gone on here, but it's like no one's alive anymore to really talk about it. So it's like kind of, I don't really know, but like there's so many stories and just kind of like some witnesses that have come forward about it. Now, patients would claim to hearing the unrest souls from the plague days. So from the plague people, like patients were like, I can hear them like crying and screaming. And like, of course, they were only told that like it's due to their own like mental illness, that like, no, you're not hearing anything, like you're not okay. But like with mental institutions is that it wasn't all insane people at this point. It was just people just not, they're ahead of their time in a sense. Like,
yeah.
You would see a bunch of just regular women in there because their husbands. Well, that was like for the US. I'm not sure for the Italy.
I'm sure it was similar.
Probably. Now, there also were during this good old lobotomies and other unsafe experiments that doctors believe would cure and create the perfect obedient person. It didn't work. Now, if you don't know what a lobotomy is, oh my God, it's bad. So pretty much they would strap down a patient on like a table, and the doctor would take an ice pick and like a little chisel, and they would go between your eyes.
Fuck no.
And they would pretty much like start picking down to your frontal cortex, which has the behavior of pretty much emotion. And they would crack your skull and remove that area part of your brain.
Hell no.
Because the problem with that, though, is that they thought it would make you more obedient, but it pretty much just removed any emotional feeling that you have. And that was the problem that they found later on, was that people had no remorse. If they got like a lobotomy done, they had no remorse, they had no feelings, they didn't feel joy, they didn't feel sadness, they didn't feel anger, they felt nothing.
Holy shit.
And so they didn't really understand the right from wrong, because they were just like whatever. And then a lot of times they kind of just, it killed them in a sense of just like they kind of became brain dead. And I believe they did a lobotomy on one of the Kennedys.
No way.
On his sister or daughter.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's wild.
Oh, just the thought of that, like scraping. I'm like, Jesus.
Yeah, it's terrible. Lobotomies are awful. So one of the legends that haunts the island is that of a doctor who experimented on patients in the bell tower. A lot of lobotomies going on, a lot of crazy experiments that people don't really know, but they just heard the screams. It is said that when you would see the doctor take the patients up to the bell tower, screams were to follow.
Ugh.
So supposedly that is like something that you go there and that's what you hear, are the screams of the patients from what the doctors did to them. Because the doctor would experiment, and a lot of times it ended in the patient's death.
Ugh. Yikes.
Yeah. So a nurse would go on to say that the doctor would proceed by pretty much doing all these experiments, but he eventually would kill himself by jumping out of the bell tower. But I also heard that he jumped off of the ladder of the bell tower, or like the top of it. So like not outside the building, but inside the bell tower. Like he jumped down and killed himself because he blamed that it was of the isolation and patients driving him mad.
Oh, wow.
And it could have well been all of the people that were haunting him as well from the plague days. So it was after the doctor's death in 1968 that the hospital would be closed down and the island would once again be left abandoned.
Dun, dun, dun.
So Venice now owns the island, the Venetian government, and has kept the exposure of people onto the island very minimal. Over 160,000 people have been noted to have been burned and died on the island. But the complete amount of this is uncertain. It could be over 250,000.
Dang.
Yeah, there is a lot of death on this island, and 160 has yet, like, they haven't even done, like, a full investigation on it.
Holy shit.
So, a good chunk of this is that because a lot of them were cremated because of the burning, it's really hard to tell. Because they would have to find the bones, and then if it got to a high enough temperature, there's no bones. So they really have no idea like how many people actually died on that island, because they didn't keep tabs. They didn't make a journal entry of like, okay, this person came in, this amount of people came in. Like, they don't have that kind of like catalog of like people coming into the island. It was kind of just like, just do it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we'll never know how many people actually died on that island.
That's crazy.
It is even said that the sand on the lagoon is that of the ashes of the people who have been burned there, because so many people have died and it's not that big of a island, that they're like, yeah, wherever you step, like on sand or whatever, that is of dead people. That's crazy. Yeah. Now, from the few people that have been allowed to go onto the island, there is always weird shit going on. Like, people are feeling like they're being followed, pushed, have that uneasy feeling. The only two like TV shows that have been allowed there are, of course, Ghost Adventures and Scariest Places on Earth.
Okay.
So, and of course, they were given permission, and if you want to tour the island, you have to get permission from it, and it could take up to years to get like, okay, yeah, you can get like a guide or something to go onto the island.
Like you have to be there on like special assignment, that kind of thing. You can't just like go.
Yeah, like if you're gonna write like an article about it or like a book,
you can't
or
just
something.
like go with your friends.
Yeah, no, and people do go on there, because when I was watching the Ghost Adventures episode, there was a lot of graffiti.
Oh,
So it's like people still go on the island. Like, you don't fucking care, and they're probably doing stupid shit, but like it's illegal. So of course they're not gonna like come out and be like, yeah, we're like totally, we totally went on there and this crazy shit happened. Like, no, like you just broke the law and admitted to it.
Oh my God.
So, but Poveglia Island, better known as Plague Island, holds a history of death, war, and torture. For such a small island, there is a lot to haunt the halls, to the point of keeping others away for safety, including the decaying buildings. So these buildings are slowly falling apart. So be safe if you ever get permission to go there. But that is Poveglia Island, Plague Island.
Damn. That shit's wild.
Yeah.
I've never heard of that place.
It is. When I saw that, I was like, why does this look familiar? And then it said Ghost Adventures, and I was like, I had to have watched this episode like a long time ago.
I'm sure I saw it too a long time ago.
But yeah, I thought, because I was like, Plague? So Halloween. Because it's so creepy. It's so crazy. But yeah, Poveglia has such a dark history. It's so bad. How many people died? I can't imagine just the unrest.
Yeah. Oh, that's terrible.
Especially all the people who didn't want to go to the island and were forced to, and then probably days later were either died or murdered. Damn. By being burned alive. Like, no, thank you.
Add it to the pile.
Yeah. Ugh. So that was mine this week. That was my spooky story.
Dang, that was spooky spook.
So spooky. We have one more.
Yeah, and it's going to be very lighthearted. It's a pretty lighthearted one.
Okay. We just hit with two hard hitters, and now we go.
It's pretty, like, it's a fun one.
Yeah.
I'll give it that. So
I'm excited.
It's really short, too. So it'll be a nice like Halloween weekend episode coming your way.
Yes, Halloween is on Monday.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be crazy. Not really, because it's a Monday, so.
I have all my candy ready to go.
I still need to buy some. I'll just go to like Costco or something.
Yeah, we got huge bags at Walmart. They weren't too bad. I don't know how many trick-or-treaters we'll get, but we'll be ready.
Yeah, I'm hoping that we get a few. So I don't really know with like the neighborhoods and stuff, like how many. Because I think we have quite a bit of kids in the area, but...
Yeah, I haven't seen, I guess there's a lot of kids like across the street from me, but
yeah,
I haven't seen like all the neighbors.
Yeah, I guess we'll see.
Yeah.
All right. Where can you catch us?
You can catch us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Historia the Podcast. And then you can also find us on Gmail. Find us on Gmail. Close enough. You can email us at Gmail. Oh my God. You can email us at historiathepodcast@gmail.com.
Sweet. We will catch you next week for another spooky episode.
Yay. Stay tuned.
Bye.
Bye.